The story of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu began long before his arrest, long before the worldwide discussion, and long before the legal battle that would later surround his name. His journey into public attention truly started in the United Kingdom, where he lived for many years and where he operated the platform known as Radio Biafra. From that small studio in UK, he sent strong messages about the history of Biafran struggle, the suffering of the Igbo people after the Civil War, and his belief that only a separate Biafran state could guarantee freedom for his people. His voice traveled through the airways, reaching listeners in Nigeria, Europe, and many other parts of the world, and he soon gathered a large group of followers who believed in his message. In those early broadcasts, Kanu spoke openly about issues that many people were afraid to talk about. He criticized the Nigerian government, describing it as corrupt and unjust. He talked about security problems, political manipulation, what he believed was the long-standing marginalization of the southeastern region. To many people, his word came like fire, waking up old memories of the Civil War, but also creating a new sense of hope that the dream of Biafra was not completely dead. As the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra IPOB, he became a symbol of resistance for thousands of young people who felt frustrated by the Nigerian's political and economic situation. However, his rising popularity also brought him into direct conflict with the Nigerian authorities. The government saw his broadcasts as dangerous, describing them as capable of causing unrest, division, and even violence. They accused him of pushing for breakup of the country and encouraging people to rebel against the government. As the disagreement between the state and the IPOB became more serious, the government listed IPOB as an unlawful organization. This sharpens the tension even more because it meant that anything connected to his activities could be seen as a crime. For years, Nnamdi Kanu continued speaking from abroad, but in 2015, everything changed when he traveled to Nigeria. He entered the country quietly without making noise or public announcements. But the government had been monitoring him. On 14th of October 2015, he was arrested in Lagos shortly after his arrival. The arrest shocked many people, especially his supporters, who did not expect the government to act so quickly or so boldly. News of the arrest spread within hours, and many people gathered in different parts of the southeast to protest, demanding his immediate release. After his arrest, he was taken to Abuja, where the government prepared a long list of charges against him. These charges including treasonable felony, operating an unlawful group, importing radio equipment illegally, and other offenses the government believed were connected to his agitation for Biafra. When he was brought to court for the first time, he pleaded not guilty to the charges. His trial began slowly with many delay, legal argument, and disagreement between his defense team and prosecutors. During this period, the protests outside the court and across the southeast grew larger. IPOB members insisted that he was being punished for speaking the truth, while the government insisted that he was threatening the unity and peace of the country. As the case continued, Nnamdi Kanu remained in detention. His lawyers complained that he was being held in harsh conditions and that his health was suffering. They made several applications for bail, arguing that he had a right to proper medical care and that he was not a flight risk. At first, the court refused these applications, saying the charges against him were too serious and that granting him bail could lead to more unrest. These refusals only increased the tension across the country, and every new court date became a major event. Finally, after months of legal battle, something changed. In early 2017, the court agreed to consider a fresh request for bail. This time, the application was based mainly on health grounds, with doctors stating he needed urgent medical attention that was not available in detention. After reviewing the argument, the judge decided to grant bail, but the conditions were very strict. The court wanted to ensure that his release would not create new security problems or escalate the tension in the country. The bail granted in April 2017 came with 3 major conditions, each one designed to control his movement and public activities. First, he was required to produce 3 sureties, and each surety had to sign a bond of 100 million naira. One of these sureties had to be a respected religious leader, such as a bishop or major cleric, while another had to be a prominent person with influence in the society. The court wanted to make sure that the people who stood for him were responsible and capable of ensuring that he obeyed all future court orders. The second major condition was that he must not attend rallies, must not be part of any gathering of more than 10 people, and must not organize any meeting that could be interpreted as agitation for Biafra. The court explained that these restrictions were necessary because large gatherings involving his followers in the past had led to clashes and unrest. The third major condition was that he must not grant interview, must not speak publicly about the case, and must not broadcast any message through Radio Biafra or any similar platform. The court believed his previous broadcasts had contributed to public tension, so they wanted to prevent anything that could lead to another rise in agitation. The judge made it clear that violating any of these conditions would lead to his immediate arrest and cancellation of the bail. After these conditions were announced and met, Nnamdi Kanu was released from detention in April 2017. stepping out into a country that was still sharply divided over his message and his movement. When Nnamdi Kanu stepped out of detention after fulfilling his bail conditions in April 2017, many people in the Southeast felt a mixture of relief, excitement, and caution. Relief because a man they saw as their symbol of hope had finally regained his freedom. Excitement because they believed his release was proof that their voices were powerful, and cautious because everyone could see clearly that his freedom came with heavy restriction. The court had placed tight limits on his movement, his communication, and his public activities, and the government was watching closely to see whether he would obey every rule. Even his supporters understood that one wrong step could send him back to detention. After leaving Kuje prison, Kanu returned to his family home in Afaruku, Umuahia, in Abia State. His home became a kind of meeting point for people who wanted to see him, listen to him, or simply be close to him. Even though the court warned him not to call for gatherings or attend rallies, it was difficult for him to completely control the number of people visiting his house. Many young men from different towns traveled there almost every day, and some stayed outside his compound from morning till night just to catch a glimpse of him or hear him speak to his supporters. He was not just a political leader. He had become a symbol of strength and resistance, someone who had stood against the federal government and survived. Inside his home, daily activities continued in an almost routine manner. He spent time with family members, attended to visitors, and held private discussions with people who came to see him. Reports showed that sometimes he addressed small groups within his compound, trying to remain cautious so as not to violate the court's instructions. But the truth was that even his simple presence attracted excitement that often turned into something like an unplanned gathering. Some of the people who came to see him would take videos, record short clips, and those records spread quickly on the internet. By July and August 2017, tension had begun to rise again. IPOB activities began to increase, and some of their statements and actions drew strong reactions from different groups across Nigeria. There were clashes between IPOB members and security agents in some states, and the atmosphere became charged. The tension reached its peak on the 14th of September 2017 when heavily armed soldiers stormed his family house. The invasion happened suddenly, and many of the people inside the compound were taken by surprise. According to accounts given by family members and eyewitnesses, the soldiers entered the area with armored vehicles and opened fire. But the most shocking part of the invasion was that Nnamdi Kanu was nowhere to be found. Nobody could say exactly where he was or what had happened to him during the attack. His parents were also caught in the incident, and the entire compound was thrown into confusion. The sudden disappearance of Kanu left people wondering whether he had been killed, captured secretly by the military, or had escaped through some unknown route. The government at first kept quiet about the situation, offering no direct explanation. The mystery took a dramatic turn. In October 2018, a video appeared on the internet. It shows Nnamdi Kanu standing in an open area dressed in a white prayer shawl, moving gently among worshippers. The background looked different from anything people had seen before. It did not look like Nigeria at all. The lighting, the building, the clothes of the people around him, it all pointed one surprising conclusion. He was in Israel. He gave his first address from Israel in a calm but firm voice. In that message, he stated that he had survived an assassination attempt during the military invasion and that he fled the country to preserve his life. He explained that he would never have disappeared if not for the direct danger he faced that day. His supporters welcomed this explanation, believing every word, and the message gave them renewed energy. From detention to bail, from invasion to disappearance, and then from silence to sudden reappearance in Israel before returning once again to UK waves. This period of broadcasting from the UK marked the beginning of yet another stage in a story that was far from over. A story that continued to evolve, twist, and surprise both his supporters and his critics. It was a new chapter that would later lead to many more events. In October 2020, a wave of outrage swept across the country under the hashtag #EndSARS, demanding an end to police brutality, especially by the Special Anti-Robbery Squad Unit known as SARS. What began as a call for reform quickly turned into a broad nationwide protest, touching every corner of Nigerian life. In the midst of that protest, Nnamdi Kanu's voice coming from far away played a role more complicated and more debated than many might imagine. From his base in the United Kingdom, Kanu addressed the #EndSARS movement on several occasions. He did not remain silent while the country was convulsed by anger, fear, and hope. Through his broadcasts, he offered commentary, guidance, and what many of his followers saw as encouragement. But the nature and impact of his involvement were contested. Some saw him as a supporter of the protest, others accused him of hijacking them for his own separatist agenda. The period leading to proscription of the indigenous people of Biafra IPOB was marked by tension, mistrust, and a rising sense of uncertainty across the southeast of Nigeria. For years, the movement had grown through street demonstration, online campaign, radio broadcasting, and an increasing number of young people who felt that the grievances of their region had not been properly addressed. The process that led to the proscription itself involved several layers of government authorities. The state governors of Southeast met under the umbrella of Southeast Governors Forum. After deliberations on the rising tension, they publicly announced that IPOB had been proscribed in their region. This announcement came as a shock to many, especially because it came from leaders of the same region where the agitation was strongest. Shortly after the governor's declaration, the federal government, through the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation, went to the Federal High Court in Abuja to obtain a formal legal order declaring IPOB a terrorist organization under Nigerian law. The court granted the request, which meant the proscription was no longer just a political statement, but a legal designation with nationwide implication. From that moment onward, anyone associated with the organization faced the risk of arrest, prosecution, or various legal restrictions. One of the most important responses came from the international community, especially the United States of America. The Nigerian government insisted that IPOB met criteria for terrorism under its domestic law. The United States government publicly clarified that it did not classify the organization as a terrorist group. The statement was brief but clear, pointing out that the US had its own legal standard for terrorist designation, and that IPOB did not meet those standards. This response stirred debate across Nigeria. Supporters of the movement saw the US position as the validation, arguing that it showed the proscription was politically driven. After several years on the run, on the 29th of June 2021, Kanu was rearrested in Kenya and brought back to Nigeria in what many describe as a controversial and forced extradition or extraordinary rendition. He was remanded by the security agencies upon arrival in Abuja. Once back, his case was rearranged before Nyaku on the amended 15-count charges that include terrorism and related offenses. In April 2022, a court under a different judge, Taiwo, struck out 8 of the counts, finding them lacking substance or jurisdiction. The remaining counts were left for trial. Kanu's then lawyers continued. From 2022, the prominent constitutional lawyer Mike Ozekome, SAN, became lead counsel. He was joined by Ejiofor and others. In June 2023, the legal team led by Chief Mike Ozekome, SAN, and Ejiofor were reportedly disengaged by Kanu's family. Thereafter, a new lead counsel emerged, Aloy Ejimako, later joined by other senior lawyers like Kanu Agabi, SAN, and others. And in March 2025, the case was handed over to Judge James Omotosho, and the court ordered accelerated hearing. In May 2025, more lawyers joined Kanu's legal team under Aloy Ejimako, likely in preparation for the serious hearing of the state's evidence. But by late 2025, the dynamics changed sharply. On 27 October 2025, during a session, Kanu announced he was sacking his entire legal team and would defend himself. He told the court in effect that there was no valid charge and no existing law under which the government could try him. He said publicly he would not call any witness, dropping even a plan to call 23 witnesses. On 20th November 2025, Judge Omotosho delivered verdict. He found Kanu guilty on all 7 counts of the amended charges. As for sentence, on count 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6, all terrorism-related charges, Kanu was given life imprisonment. For count 3, relating to leadership of a proscribed group, he got 20 years imprisonment. For count 7, illegal importation of radio transmitter, he got 5 years imprisonment. Many of these sentences run concurrently. The way forward. The trial and verdict will likely deepen tension in the Southeast, revive feelings of grievance amongst supporters of Kanu and the idea of a separate Biafra. The government and the judicial system should consider ensuring transparency in appeal proceedings and guarantee fair hearing so that justice both to the victim of violence and to Kanu's right is seen to be done. For Kanu, any strategy should involve a serious legal team, not a lone self-representation. If appeal is to succeed, it must be rooted in tight professional legal argument and not emotion. Also, there may be room for negotiation or political mediation, though that is risky and sensitive, but given the history and emotions around Biafra agitation, a purely legal battle may not address the root grievance. In the bigger picture, the government and civil society should aim to address underlying political, social, and economic complaints from the Southeast that fuel separatist sentiment. Finally, and most importantly, those aggrieved must be heard. Dialogue, reconciliation, trust building, and protection of rights of citizens must go hand in hand with law enforcement and security. That, I think, is the only way forward if Nigeria is to avoid another cycle of destruction and violence.